Hello everyone, I am Saket Bansal back again with another episode of PMP Exam Prep Power Hour. In this episode, we introduce one concept related to project management PMP exam, and then we talk about your query, your specific questions from any area, not limited to this particular topic alone, related to project management, which can help you to speed up your PMP certification journey. So, with this goal, today I am focusing on project governance, overall understanding of project governance, and then taking some of the question related to your PMP exam. I do have two questions in advance, which I got from the LinkedIn message. And yes, I have my project governance topic to start with. So that's the plan. If you are watching us on LinkedIn, you can put your comment in the same platform where you are watching me. It should reach me. That's the one thing. If you're on a YouTube, then also you have a live chat where you can put your questions, comment, and that will reach me. And we will talk about those queries. So process of interaction is pretty simple. You just need to put the comment wherever you see me right now, YouTube/LinkedIn. So thank you for your participation. I see many of you already joined in. I can see this particular thing in my interface. So starting with our today's topic. So project governance, it's a small topic, but it's a task 14 of your PMP exam content outline. It's a part of a process domain. And I have been analyzing the results of many PMP test takers, and I saw the governance task was not coming as good I expected for many of the people whom I was doing the analysis of their exam result. So I thought it's a small task, may give you 3-4 questions only, but if you perform well, you score good in the governance topic. So that's the reason I am talking about governance in today's session. So task 14 of your process domain talks about putting the right governance structure for your organization and influenced by organization for your project, and then managing escalations and tolerance and threshold so that you can take assistance from your governance group. So with this, let's get into the topic. So first thing first, what is governance? So we can assume we are working in the organization where many projects are getting executed. And I am, as a project manager, is working based on best of my knowledge, best of my skills, best of my resources to achieve project objective. And I'm involving my project team in doing those things. But at an organization level, my organization also wants to keep little bit track of and provide guidance to all the projects which are happening in their space. Now, there could be a possibility of you are working in a very large, complex organization. You may have a sub governance also, which is not at an org level, but there could be a department level, location level. But there is a group who is keeping eye on your project execution, who supports you for various things which are going beyond your control. And that group is called governance group. So governance is one of the important things we need to keep in mind. The projects are temporary endeavor. We come into existence, we do that work, and we release our deliverable, and we are done. But the organization needs to think about long-term sustenance of deliverable also. They need to think about maintaining compliances and other regulation so that there is no problem at an organization level. So governance also ensures that we are not doing something which can put organization in trouble, and we are not taking any shortcuts, because overall, whatever deliverable we produce should be sustainable, maintainable in the long term. So the governance group keeps eye on our work. Now, somebody will say, what are the aspects of project management which are expected to be governed? I would say all the aspects. Now, many a time, if you are working in a predictive life cycle, we think budget is something the most critical aspect which my stakeholder, my governance group is interested in. Maybe right. Yeah. If you are working on a low margin product and there is a possibility or a project or a deliverable, and if it is influenced by fixed price contract from the client, then super important. And in those cases, the budget could be the major focus area for your governance group. But we should not be assuming that other than budget, my governance group is not interested in other areas. So project governance might be looking into all aspects of your project management, starting with how do you take care of compliances, how do you ensure a good collaborative team environment? How do you put reporting structure inside your project team? What kind of quality policies you follow? What kind of documentation you do? How do you keep and maintain those documents so that they are secure? So all the aspects. There is no aspect which is not covered. Yeah? How do you identify risk? Where do you record them? How frequently you do a meeting? What kind of communication approach you have to take? All these things are expected to be covered. Now, somebody will say, if this is all coming from the governance group, then what do I do as a project manager? I thought these are the areas which project manager has to work upon. So yes, the project manager has to work on all the aspects of project management, scope, time, risk, all those things, in the guidance of your overall organization processes, your overall environment, and governance is a part of your environment. So you need to care for what governance want. You don't necessarily follow their advice directly. You can propose tailoring, but you need to work in consultation, in agreement with the governance group for all aspects of your project management. So that's the role or influence the governance will have on you. Now, the another point could be, yes, we hear about governance code, steering committee and all. Who all are part of it? Is it something PMO is governance? So see, for a PMP exam, it is very difficult to say who all constitutes governance board, because it depends upon your organization and the type of environment or a policy they have. So if I say that sponsor is a part of governance, yes, the term sponsor usually associated with governance. Somebody will say, why not product owner? Why not program manager? Why not portfolio manager? All of these people could be a part of governance. So say, if I am doing strategic projects and I have a portfolio management group, I have funding coming from a particular department, those high power, high interest stakeholder portfolio people will be part of governance, and there could be a one particular unit which might be sponsoring our project, that will be definitely a part of governance. If I'm doing contract-driven execution, then there is a possibility of my sales people, my contract management people, my account management people will be part of governance. My PMO group will be definitely playing some role in the governance. Now, PMO alone may not be able to do governance. PMO is doing many things. They are providing support, they are providing infrastructure, resource management, sometime at a shared level. They may be also checking some of the reports and variances. But some people from the PMO will be working with the governance group closely so that we ensure the projects are going as per organization expectation and projects are working towards achieving organization objective as per the standards and policy organization expect to follow. So that way, you can say the governance is little higher, little more powerful group than PMO. If just PMO comes, I may not necessarily consider PMO as a powerful group all the time. It depends, because I need to see the question. Sometimes PMO may just do a support activity, but in some organization, PMO might be doing governance activity. But when I see a word governance, I understand it is a high power, high interest group, which is taking care of my project execution related activity, at least monitoring them at a higher level to ensure the organization level alignment happens. So in general, sponsor is a good name to be a part of governance group. Program manager could be a part of governance group, especially if you're a part of program. So there will be a program level governance at before the organization level governance come, if your project is a part of program. And the portfolio manager will be a part of governance if you are doing strategic projects. Your sales account manager can also be a part of your governance group if you are doing sales-based project or contract-based projects. Now, what role they will play, the governance group? So one thing is very clear from my explanation, they will be keeping eye on your project execution. That's obvious. What else? So you can consider governance as a support, as a mentor, a group or a unit for your project. If you get stuck, you need more budget than initially allocated, you go to governance group. The change control, especially in a predictive life cycle, will be done by the full governance group or a subset of governance group. The people who constitute change control board will be very closely working with the governance group. So that's the another role. The governance group may be also kind of recommending the type of KPIs, matrices you follow. They definitely want to focus on outcome-based matrices, which you need to track throughout the project. That's a role they will play. They work also as an escalation point. If something which cannot be resolved at a project level, it gets escalated to the governance group. Now, escalation requires a little bit more attention. We need to identify the escalation thresholds. Like when things goes beyond this level, it has to be escalated to governance group. So even say you have a customer request, you are expected to resolve it. But if it is not resolved for more than 10 days, probably it get escalated to governance groups if you have a part of 10 days threshold defined in your escalation process. Or if you face a problem which you believe is beyond your control, then also you can go and escalate to the governance group. So governance group takes care of escalation. Governance group also ensure the inter department or external support if you are unable to achieve it. So they are there to support you. They are there to keep eye on your project work. They will be reviewing your project reports on a weekly, monthly basis as per your approach. There will be participation in your iteration reviews / phase reviews as and when needed as per your life cycle. So that's the work the governance group will do for your work. Now, escalation required a little bit more stress from a PMP exam perspective. If something goes wrong, you should not rush for escalation. Yeah. Sometimes you have a question and you see that functional head is not supporting you, or there is some challenge coming in, and one of the options is escalate to sponsor, escalate to governance, escalate. Yeah. So say escalation is needed. At the same time, I am also there as a project manager. I have some duty and obligation to get the things done without seeking assistance all the time. Yeah. So my job, especially at a PMP level, is to get the things done as much as possible without escalation. So I look for options where escalation can be avoided, where it shows that I will resolve it. That should be there. But if the question clearly indicate that this thing has breached the escalation level as per your governance group definition, which can be documented in your project management plan, or it clearly shows that this is something beyond the authority or control of a project manager, then you go for immediate escalation. So in general, in the PMP exam, good percentage of time, immediate attention is not needed. Those kind of questions will not come. But if you are going for immediate attention, you need to cross-check and see that is there a clear indication for doing that. So that's a little tip for your handling of a governance and escalation. Now, moving forward, governance and life cycle. So sometimes we think governance is governance. All projects are expected to have it. The answer is yes, all projects are expected to have it, but not necessarily at the same level. Say you are doing a long duration, high value project, the governance group may want to know more details and they may want you to create more documents so that they are comfortable about that particular project execution. Yeah? So it may be more detailed. You might be doing a short duration project. The governance group may not be that much involved. They will say once the project gets started, we are there to approve it. And once the project gets finished, we will see is it done or not done. Probably there could be some set of projects which may be out of governance purview also, because they are not that much critical. Yeah? So they maybe have a lower level governance group taking care of. Sometimes we don't want to do it because they are operational kind of in nature. So in general, for a PMP exam, I believe governance is applicable everywhere. Yeah, I may not directly go to a step where it is not relevant. I by default believe it's applicable everywhere. But the depth of governance, the involvement of governance group varies. There is no one approach which will fit to all the project. So inside the same organization, you may have a 3-month project, you may have a 1-year project, you have a 3-year project, which is a part of a program. All three may have a different level of governance. They may have a different level of documentation recommendation, and they may have a different level of key performance indicator, which we need to track. Yeah? So we need to understand the overall life cycle approach and the exact number of phases, exact number of artifacts you generate that will also influence the governance activities. Now, little bit further, how do we do governance in predictive life cycle? And then the final topic, how do we do governance in adaptive life cycle? So let's focus on how do we do governance in predictive life cycle. So majorly, the predictive life cycle is associated with identifying the detailed plan in advance and then having a common understanding about that plan with the stakeholders. So you can say governance will be guiding you how much detailed planning should be done, and governance will be involved in baselining your plan. So baselining of the plan will be definitely done in consultation with the governance group, because their expectation or there will be some guidance which is given to us based on their experience related to project. So initially the governance group or some of the stakeholders from governance groups are critically involved, and they will get our budget baseline, schedule baseline, and scope baseline finalized. So that's a high engagement time. Afterwards, when the baselinings are done, they will be keeping eye on our execution. So we might be sending them weekly or monthly reports in a predictive life cycle. But as we understand, each project is expected to be organized or splitted in phases. because each phase gives us a completion of type of work. It produces a type of deliverable, and also gives a governance group to take a critical review of where do we stand on this project. So any phase movement is a critical governance point. So you can say, as a project manager, I will have periodic governance reports, which might be at a frequency. And then whenever we are moving from one phase to another, there will be a critical governance review. First, they will ensure that previous phase objectives are met, and then they will talk about that we are clear to start the next phase work. And it may also work to revalidate the viability of this particular whole project, and it may also get results into sometime not continuing with the project, or maybe increasing budget or increasing the timeline for the projects as well. So governance is critically involved during the phase movement. And another thing which is predictive lifecycle association with governance group is a change control. So by default, we can assume whenever the change requests are coming, some of the governance group has an engagement to make sure, especially if it is going beyond a threshold, something which is more to do with budget. So governance has to do some intervention there. So that's another thing we can assume. Compliance guidance, compliance audit, the governance may have some intervention and monitoring in that particular space as well. And definitely the overall approach, the type of documentation we have to do, that will be guided by my PMO and maybe ensured overall by my governance group. So I can go to them, escalation point as usual, and I need to focus on phase as a predictive lifecycle governance point. Now, governance in adaptive lifecycle. Yeah, that is something we can also explore before we close the governance topic. Now, adaptive lifecycle is working under the assumption that we are very closely working with our stakeholders. So the backlog refinement and the people who interact with the team are expected to be high power, high interest people. So the product owner should be one of the key person who either represents the governance or who closely work with the governance group. That much we can keep in mind for our PMP exam. So in the agile way of working, we first need to have an agreement on our approach, our life cycle, which is there in the adaptive also, predictive also with the governance group. They give us high level threshold, high level escalation points. So they guide them how should we operate. Yeah? High level objectives are given. And then we start executing. The representative of governance or a bigger governance group should be a part of your iteration/sprint review. So they will be seeing what has been done, what should be done next. That's a one engagement level. The backlog refinement is also expected to be done under the guidance of governance group. Product owner can be considered as one of their representative. Whenever you are preparing a roadmap and talking about release planning and monitoring the progress of release, those things are also critically engaged with governance group. Yeah. But in general, somebody say, is there any difference between predictive lifecycle and adaptive lifecycle governance? We can say the predictive lifecycle governance is more variance oriented. You had a baseline and you are doing something. If there is a variance, we need to catch you. That's a predictive lifecycle approach. Whereas the adaptive lifecycle approach is more engagement oriented and analyzing what we have achieved in our previous sprints. And based on that, what we understand about our customer base, what we understand about overall environment, and how should we adapt to it as a part of our backlog refinement. Now, if the question indicates agile teams are self-organized and you don't need a governance, then you definitely know it's a trap. From a project management perspective, each and every project requires governance. It could be lightweight, it could be differently done, but some amount of governance is needed because organization wants to ensure the project is keeping the organization objective and interest in mind. Yeah. So that's about the governance. I see that there is one message pending, and yeah. So please feel free to add your questions if you have any, and we can focus on here. Yeah. So is the same in PGMO or a PMO? I probably expect that program management office and project management office. That's probably I differentiate between these two words. So we can say exactly the constitute of governance may vary. If your project is part of a program, then you may have a two-level governance. You will have your program level governance, and then you will have an organization level governance. Yeah. So in that case, and you can say there could be a separate group who is doing program level governance. If you are not part of a program as a project, independent project, then you can assume that I am directly working with my organization level governance group. Now, what is program? Program is designed to ensure the interconnected, interdependent projects are managed in a consistent manner, in a more coordinated manner. so that we can achieve the program level objective. So program has its own objective, and we want to ensure that the candidate projects are working together to achieve that objective. So the project is getting executed, and program people also want to see the eye on what is happening. So you will have a program management office which is focusing on that particular program alone. Project management office, if the word comes, it might be looking at most of the projects irrespective of program limitation. And if you have an organization level governance group, you can say it's a governance group which is handling all these things. So I look at the question, and based on that, I will decide. It may not be directly available in the answers. So that's the query which we got related to governance. I take a pause in case you have a question. I have two questions which came from the message source, which I can start with, but just I gave. Here. Okay, so looks like I start with my one. And it is pretty much connected with the governance topic. Let's explore that. Now, this question came in a little different language. Does project phases map to a fixed documents? If yes, what are they? Now, many times people ask, can you tell me at the end of a project what all documents should be there and when I have to create all these documents? Now, for a PMP exam perspective, there is no fixed answer because there is no fixed phase. You may have a 3 phase, you may have a 10 phase, you may have a 5 phase. And each phase definition depends upon your context. Now, please don't equate phase with your project management activities like planning, executing, monitoring, and closing and initiating. They are process groups, but we don't have to worry about them anymore for a new PMP exam, but they are not phases. So what is project phase? Depending upon the nature of work, I want to create some clear focused area. So it is manageable, understandable by stakeholder. And once it is finishes, we need to produce some set of documents which help us in evaluating, are we doing good? The document is not the goal. The evaluation is the goal. And in order to evaluate how are we doing, do we have a right assumptions to continue, we may use a documentation as a tool. So documents are always tool. They provide platform for information exchange. They provide platform for finalizing our understanding. But if you can do these two things without document, then also it is perfectly okay. And sometimes that requires 10 documents, sometimes it requires 3 documents. So we need to identify as per our project lifecycle. So where I define it, as a project manager, when I start a project, I pick up a project lifecycle as in consultation with my PMO. And as per the project lifecycle, I will have a set of steps or set of artifacts, deliverables, which I need to produce. And as a project manager, I can propose tailoring. I can say these artifacts probably not needed or more needed. I propose that tailoring. And once finalized as a part of a project management plan, then I will follow these documents as and when needed. Yeah, so there is no fixed documentation in case of our PMP exam. Now, the related question, because this question came as a one, focusing on what is the sequence of requirement and scope in a predictive lifecycle? Do we do scope baseline first? Do we do validate scope first? How these things happens? Now, this is a particular question which can be easily understood with the help of PMBOK 6 processes or a PMI process guide processes related to project scope management. So we understand that we need to first start with creating overall understanding of how are we going to manage requirements and scope. Now, this understanding could be a verbal understanding, but we should be clear with the stakeholders that what all documents we will produce, how frequently we'll review them, and what is our approach. From a project management perspective, we call it requirement management plan to have a clarity about how are we going to manage requirements. And then we talk about how are we going to manage scope as a scope management plan. So first thing I do, I need to have an approach agreement. And usually these approaches are directly inherited from my organization process assets, might be maintained by my PMO. And I will say, this is how we will take care of requirements and scope. Now, once it is done, then I start working on the requirement. So requirement is helping me in understanding high-level needs and expectation. And I try to understand from a stakeholder perspective, what kind of characteristics, capabilities they need in the solution. So requirement is all from usage size, from stakeholder size, from the people who are going to consume our deliverable. They are thinking about their needs, expectations, and capability. I bring them. So I create a requirement document. Now, when I have to deliver this particular requirement, I probably won't be able to create deliverable requirement wise. One requirement, one deliverable, another requirement, another deliverable. I need to think about solution from a technical side. I need to apply subject matter experts. I need to do alternative analysis and find out how do we solve this requirement by providing a particular deliverable, particular artifact. How do we solve that? So that thing which is coming as a solution get defined, and that get defined in a more crystal clear manner, and we call it project scope document. So project scope document defines the characteristics of the deliverable, which will be taking care of requirement, and it is done by applying subject matter knowledge, not just a requirement information. Requirement is definitely a trigger for that, but we need to come up with a scope statement. So scope statement is usually prepared by experts and your project team member. Requirement document will be also prepared by a project team member, but it is prepared based on the feedbacks coming from users and stakeholders. So there they comes, here scope statement is coming. Now, once the scope statement is done, in a predictive lifecycle, we also want to decompose and disaggregate the scope into manageable chunk, and that thing is called work breakdown structure. So say your scope statement might be a 200 page, but you want to create sections in it so that different people can work on it. And you want to ensure that you are not missing anything. And in order to achieve that, you create work breakdown structure. And for each element of the hierarchical diagram, you want to explain it further. And that element where these elements are elaborated is called WBS dictionary. So it's just a dictionary of each and every element of WBS. So you do that. And once these things are done, you take it to the governance group, you take it to the stakeholders, you review them, and you take a sign off on it. And that is called scope baseline. So scope baseline contains scope statement, WBS, and WBS dictionary. Now you start executing as a project manager, and you also remain worried. It should not be a case where scope and requirements are not matching. So you also maintain a tracking sheet where you have a requirement at one side and various element of scopes and deliverables and WBS on another side, and later on execution steps and testability to make sure each and every requirement is really getting taken care. And that tracking sheet is called requirement traceability matrix. So these are the things you create in order to get started. Now, what is validate scope? Once you start producing deliverable, not to wait for a project to finish, as soon as it finishes, then you take that deliverable in front of your stakeholders to get a feeling, is it acceptable? So now, based on your WBS and WBS dictionaries and all, you will do a project scheduling that will come. You will do an execution of project. You will produce a deliverable. You will perform quality checks on those deliverable. That is also called verified deliverable. And once everything looks good, then you go for taking the feedback from the stakeholder, which is called validate scope. So from your side, you have developed and done everything, and you are doing validate scope. And if everything looks good, they will do an acceptance of it, or they will produce validated deliverable. That's the simple flow of your project scope in a predictive lifecycle. One important thing from a PMP exam perspective, don't assume the validation only happen at the end of the project. Even if the customer delivery might be happening at the end, you as a project manager always focus on taking incremental validation. You want to make sure as soon as the deliverable is ready means delivered, tested, verified internally by our project team, and we have resolved all the defects, and we believe this is good to go to the customer. We show it. We show it. Customer may not reuse it. Your client customers, because it's a predictive life cycle, they may not consume it directly, but you take an acceptance, you take a sign off as much as possible, as early as possible, even in a predictive life cycle. In adaptive life cycle, that's kind of the most basic requirement, but in a predictive life cycle also you do it because you want to mitigate the risk for future confusion. So that's the idea. I guess we'll take care of your requirement documentation case. So that's the thing. So PIMBOK 6 5.5 validate scope. So you can say so. That's a validate scope. That's what I am seeing. So you can say validate scope is a process of looking at verified deliverables, presenting it to the stakeholders, and then you go forward. Now for PMP exam, you don't have to focus on the memorization of the word of each process, the input output of each process. That is not needed. But if the understanding is missing, then we have a problem. So we need to make sure that we have an understanding of collection of requirement, putting the scope and getting it WBS and verify deliverable going for validation. That understanding should be there. I may not remember what is that process called. Perfectly okay. I may not remember exactly input output for those processes. Not at all needed. If you are using PMBOK 6 or a PMI process guide, which is an equivalent of PMBOK 6, the new process guide, it is for your better understanding of project management processes. It clarifies fundamental ideas to you and shows you one of the possible way of doing these things. But why PMI is not stressing on them in the PMP exam? Because they believe it's one of the thing. You may do it differently also, but you need to understand the overall essence of it. So we need to focus on essence, not to focus on exact words and terminology. Now, interesting question. Could it happen that my project is going well, but I'm not able to adhere to governance requirements? Possible. But the problem is, what is the meaning of your project going well? Yeah. So we need to identify project objectives, and we need to identify what are the indicators which shows that we are meeting the project objectives and going in a right direction. Yeah. So looks like the understanding of project objective is not consistent between the governance group and maybe a project team, because project team believes everything is going perfect and governance team believes there are few things which needs to be improved. Yeah. So my goal, if the question indicates in the PMP exam, so I need to be very clear and have this question will become a question of a task, create a shared understanding about the project. Yeah. Because as a project manager, I need to create shared understanding. So I will say, better we have a problem solving workshop with the people who believe our project is not going good and understand away from them what is the problem. Either we understand that we are not tracking the right thing and we need to focus on the areas which are also concerned area, or we make them understand that you don't have to worry about it, everything is going good. Yeah? So that is something we need to reach. But we need to reach to an agreement, because if we don't create common understanding of the project, shared understanding about the project, we are failing as a project manager for that particular task. Yeah, for a PMP exam. Now, I was doing one training with a medical device company, and they were saying many a time people come and says we have done the code, but they are not finishing the compliance documentation. And for us, without compliance documentation, we can't put the code for, say, further steps or even for review and even finally release, because it is very regulated industry. So for me, it is not done. For me, it is not going well because the documentations are missing. So there could be a case where I believe everything is done, but they believe it is not. So we need to create common understanding about our project, and that will help us in resolving this problem. So map it to task which focuses on creating shared understanding about the project deliverables and project values, project approaches, everything. Yeah. Confusions are my problem as a project manager. Yeah. Nothing is right and wrong, but shared understanding should be there. And if it is not there, I need to do something about it. Yeah. Okay, so I think we covered that questions which we got till now. If you have any specific one, anyone, we can add it here. Okay, looks like I take a quick pause and see if there are more questions on this topic or anything else on project management. Okay, so, okay, looks like as of now I have covered everything on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. I'm just cross-validating. A quick update now, our PMP style questions which we have put into the YouTube. And now the count is 150. Actually, it's more than enough to pass the PMP exam. You need to for practice on time management. Yeah, We do have a situation where someone just watched those 150 videos and went for exam, but he could not manage the time. So you need to practice the time management. We also have a situation where people just watch those and could manage time without practicing the other mock test. But my recommendation is, yes, watch them, understand the whole ECU, because they cover the complete exam content outline, freely available on our YouTube channel. But do practice few 180 question full length test in a one shot, and not to take 50 question today and 50 question tomorrow. Go with the one flow so that you don't have a problem in time management when you go for final exam. Yeah. So yes, it is not complicated, the PMP exam, but little bit of time management and planning and discussion and preparation is needed. We have 7 mock tests and we keep recommending our clients to take all the 7, but we do have a situation where people don't take it, still pass. Many just take 3 and still pass. And recently we had in the last week, few candidates who were just taking 3 tests and went ahead because they were not having time. So exceptions are there. And if you start scoring good, even in 2-3 tests, probably you are good. But it's good to increase the probability of passing the exam in the first attempt itself. I keep saying, even if you go without practice or without learning anything for a PMP exam, then you still pass. 50% chances are there you still pass. Yeah. But it's better to increase the chances from 50 to 80 by way of doing practices. So there is a question coming in: is the governance is part of all 5 phases of the project, as a 1 or a 5 different part? So please don't consider the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control, and closing as a project phases. These activities happens more or less all the time. The phases could be, for example, if I take a software example, a requirement gathering phase. Yeah, if you are doing predictive lifecycle software, you may do a requirement gathering, and the output could be a requirement document. Then there could be a second phase, which might be a planning and feasibility phase. The output could be project schedule and refined cost estimation. The third could be execution phase, which will be producing the deliverable, which will help the delivering the thing, implementation or execution phase. Then you will have a testing phase. Then you probably have a deployment phase. Then you may have an overall rollout phase, and you close the project. These are just examples. Now, throughout the project, you will keep doing monitoring and control. You will keep doing replanning and all those things. So the phases depends upon the type of project you are doing, the guidance you are getting from your management. Now, all these phases will definitely have a governance. So say after collecting the requirement, there could be a review as a milestone review to understand, do we have a good requirement to move forward with, or the requirement phase has not produced the desired document, which is putting at risk for the next phase. After doing feasibility and planning, we may produce scoping and costing and scheduling. That's a good phase to decide, should we really do this? Or it's not worth enough now because our initial business case is not holding true. So all these points will be a governance points. And throughout the project, when we are doing all this, every 2 weeks or every 1 month, you may need to produce a status report about your project and send it to them. There is a highly likelihood once in a month you may have a project governance review where you go and talk about your project status. Yeah. So it's throughout, but please stay away from 5 phase understanding. It is just a process group. Sometimes it becomes like differently. Okay, can you please cover type of risk management and how should they be identified proactively, and discuss project manager's plans to avoid them? So I probably read this question: what categories or type of risk can come in our project, and what do I do as a project manager to take care of them? That seems to be the question. And I believe that's going to be your interview question as well, and as a PMP exam question as well. Risk related questions are around 10-ish in your PMP exam. So it's an important thing, and they may be popping up here and there. So from a PMP exam perspective, risk could be positive and negative. So we call it opportunities and threats. But for generic conversation, if you are talking about your interviews and all, usually risks are more associated with threats, which are negative. Yeah? So you need to be clear about that. Now, whatever we do in our project management, we need to agree on the approach first. Yeah? So first you need to identify, how do I address this risk management? When you focus on the approach, you may look at a historical data and you go to your PMO and ask, is there any specific categories of risk I need to care for? So my PMO, for at least for a PMP exam, is expected to maintain some of the knowledge base. Yeah. And they will tell in your type of project which you are running, these are the type of risks which are more relevant for you. Now, type of risk varies. Some people maintain type of risk based on risk source. Some people maintain type of risk based on risk impact. And there is a possibility some organization maintain both characteristics of it. So what is the source? Source could be business, compliance, technical, people, processes, contract. Yeah. All these are type of area which might be putting or environment, the geographical environment, yeah, political environment. All these are the categories which might be relevant for you. So this is okay. Think about, is there any a financial, is there any contractual terms which might be risking? Think about various compliances and think about if there is any problem in those compliances. Think about your people. Is there any problem related to the people? So you need to, it's there more like a prompt list to you. So you think about them. There could be an impact-based risk. We can say, is there any risk which can impact schedule? Is there any risk which can impact cost? Is there any risk which can impact people and their motivation? That could be another category. Usually source-based categories are good. So we need to pick up the source-based category. Now for each source-based category, depending upon my project context, I will start analyzing various documents, various historical data. I brainstorm with my subject matter experts to identify what possibly can be needed to be tracked. What is uncertain? Because risk is uncertain. Uncertain opportunity or uncertain threat. I am bringing and listing down all those uncertainties and how these uncertainties impact my project. That's my first point, which I prepare as a risk register. And then I may not be able to take care of all of them, and it may not worth taking care of all of them. So I need to do some kind of assessment and prioritization. So in our project management, we learn about qualitative and quantitative, but we can say for a simplicity of this conversation, we identify probability and impact and find out which is more important and less important. So we put that. And based on that, we identify which one needs to be taken care more. That is guided by a risk management plan as a governance group also, which can probably be accepted. So we identify them and then we create a response plan. Usual response plans are like avoid, mitigate, transfer, accept if you don't want to do anything about it, or escalate if it is going beyond your thing. But majority of time as a project manager in a real practice, you focus on avoid and mitigate the most. Yeah. So what is avoid? You change your path. You don't take that particular thing which is risky. Yeah. So say a particular technology you want to use, you decided not to use it because it is not stable. You have avoided that particular risk. Yeah. That's one example. Particular technology you wanted to use, but you can't avoid using it. It's something critical for you, but it's risky. Then possibly you mitigate. You can say we will spend time learning about it, and we are having some vendor to support us for some kind of challenges. You may do some proof of concepts to make sure that things will not go wrong, but still the risk remains. But you are doing your best to find out things which will help you in taking care of those problems as they occur. So if I am preparing for interview, then I need to focus on more mitigate and avoid kind of examples. I think we have many in our YouTube channel to focus on. If I'm focusing on PMP exam, then I need to focus on all 5 for threats. There are other responses for positive risks also. They are more PMP side, like you want to exploit the opportunity, you want to share the opportunity, you want to enhance the probability of achieving those opportunity. So those kind of things are also there in case of positive part. So we spent around 2 hours talking about risk management in our live class, but I think this brief should be able to help you. For more, the PMBOK 6 or PMI process guide, risk management knowledge area is nice. Yeah. Again, you don't need to remember all the processes, names, and input outputs, but it's nice to give a holistic approach. You do need to keep in mind adaptive life cycle. All these things are done, but done differently. They are not necessarily based on documents and all. They are done as a part of various meetings. So in the adaptive life cycle, backlog refinement help us in looking at futuristic risk, which will be impacting our product backlog and its priority. And iteration planning and iteration daily stand-ups and all will help you in identifying day-to-day risk, which needs to be taken care to protect your iteration goal and ensure that you achieve the right deliverable at the end of iteration. So that kind of variance also you need to put into. I know, long topic, but that's the thing till here. Okay, so majorly governance risk, I think pretty much connected topic, and project phases, scoping, yeah, nice. And also looking at various series of document you produce in requirement. That's great. Yeah, yeah. So how is governance part of agile? We spoke about that little bit. So when I was introducing the governance, so first thing is it is part and it is more engaging. So you can say I'm working in the adaptive approach. I first need to go and meet the management and understand what are their high level thresholds. We can call them guardrails also, which we need to care for. So my organization says we want to finish it in a 1 year time. So I understand that. And if you see it is going to take more than 1 year, escalate us immediately, something like that. Yeah. We want to make sure that people are happy. So there could be some element, some expectation they can tell to us, and I need to keep that in mind. That's my first governance point. They may also tell me if there are some compliance requirements. Even if I'm following agile way of working, compliance requirements are compliance requirement, doesn't changes. So I probably learn about that. I also learn if there are some set of audits which my project is expected to subject to because of internal and external reason. I need to understand that. Yeah. So be it adaptive life cycle, be it predictive life cycle, understanding the overall governance approach for my project is a starting point. Now, when we do the things, we probably want to map these things with the meetings which we are doing in Agile. So, for example, in a release planning meeting, we involve with the stakeholders to have a clear understanding of release goal. That could be a good governance point. And whenever we are doing iteration review, we want people to come together to review what is we are doing. So, in the Agile way of working, our focus should be governance should be around working software. In a predictive life cycle, governance could be based on document, based on reports, or based on deliverable. That is also okay. But in case of adaptive life cycle, the foundation of governance should be around working software. That's why I want to take it iteration review. And there could be some reporting also. Some stakeholder may not be able to attend my iteration review. I may need to provide some set of matrices and reports to them. Yeah. And based on iteration review, I may get a feedback. Let's not continue this idea. This is not making sense. That's a governance point. Or let's invest more time than initially expected. That's also a governance point. Now, sometime in a real projects, every iteration governance group may not be able to attend. So they may do a release level demos and there the critical governance are happening. But at iteration review level, product owner level governance is happening. And we can consider product owner as a good representative of governance group. He is a high power, high interest stakeholder. And based on these reviews, our backlog refinements are getting impacted. So the representative who is a product owner is providing right governance to ensure that we are prioritizing things in a right manner. So by default, I can assume product owner does a governance role in case of agile way of working. As a project manager, I need to understand the overall context, the enterprise environmental factor, irrespective of life cycle I am involved in. And I probably need to work with some stakeholders which are beyond the product owner. Could be a sponsor, could be a compliance group, could be external customers, could be anyone. And I need to ensure those things are taken care as per my project management plan or project management activities. Yeah. So we need to fit the governance and agile to achieve our project objective. They all are there to provide right support and right checks and balances, because organization also wants to get things done in a most optimal manner. And you as a project manager is also looking for providing the support and environment to your project team so that they can achieve project objective in a most optimal manner. So we all are chasing the same goal. Everyone is contributing as per their power and their role. That is what I should keep in mind. I should not consider governance people are problem people, they keep disturbing me and all. So that mindset should not be there. Even if the question indicates, I says I will work with them, I will create shared understanding with them. I need to make them friend of the project. If they are not friend, something is going wrong and I am unable to manage my people skill. I need to develop my people skill as a PMP and focus on improving that engagement. Yeah? So that's what we can think. Okay, so final 10 minutes. If someone has a query to put in here, we can talk. So we can say, in your opinion, which governance PMO type directive controlling best complement project status? So see, PMO having how much governance responsibility may be focusing on directive, controlling, and support. So we can say definitely when your PMO has a directive and controlling role, they are part of they are more part of a governance group. if they are doing pure support, we can say they are not that much part of governance group. That much we can say. Now, support is something which is like making the documentation, providing template, managing the knowledge base. But when they start doing auditing, tracking your weekly reports and all, they are becoming controlling PMO, they are part of governance. And when they provide you recommendation, what to do, what not to do, they are giving instructions also which you need to care for, they are becoming directive PMO. So yes, controlling directive, PMO will be more part of PMO overall governance group, but we can say that governance group will have people who are beyond PMO. That's a high possibility. We will have high power, high interest stakeholder constituting that. So there is an interesting question. Yeah, maybe we can take it. I was asked, how do you handle chaos? So say if the question is coming in the interviews, basically they just want to see what you answer. Yeah, that's the thing. And usually such kind of things, we need to come up with some examples. So what is chaos? Yeah, chaos is something like a firefighting. So say you wanted to go live and you gave a demo to the customer, and it is the final moment and everyone is ready and things start falling apart, and then everyone is escalating, team is also stressed, and we don't know what we do need to do next week. So chaos is something where there is no visibility of what to do, why to do, you are in a fire. So you need to handle it. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So if you have an example of doing it, present it. That's a good idea. How do you handle? Depends. There is no universal recipe for it, else anybody can do it. But overall, some of the fundamental ideas always play a role. Creating an empathetic relationship with the people, not to lose your cool, demonstrate emotional intelligence, focus on facts, not to get carried away, people saying this and that, and making people agree on seeing the fact. Not to say, I told you this, I told you this, I told you this. We can say, okay, whatever has happened, we are here. We are here, and I and my team wants to do best of the job, but let's work out and figure out what we can do right now. We are in a chaos. That's a clarity of it. So acknowledging the reality, keeping things transparent, always showing good faith, not to take shortcuts, following transparent processes, and then using your existing strong relationship with your stakeholder to navigate this particular situation. So that's our high level recipe, but you need to find out exact in detail. So go-to-market strategy is usually a marketing kind of word or a product management thing. May not be a pure project management topic. Yeah. So if someone says, "What is your go-to-market strategy?" Is something is more how do you launch a product? How do you get a customer base? How do you promote it? What is your growth hypothesis? How do you make the thing viral? Those kind of stuff are there, not necessarily related to project management carefully. But if you have been doing product management for a while and you have seen some of the products getting launched, and you know that what worked there and some of the projects which failed, even if you had a deliverable, but you could not go to the market and create the desired traction, those inputs you can take it. Yeah. So any business requires go-to-market strategy. I need a go-to-market strategy to sell my PMP. That's how I started. Anything which you have in your pocket and you want to sell, you need to have a strategy to go to the market. Yeah. So that's the experience, but little bit specific for there. Yeah. So how do you engage with the stakeholders when they are not coming to talk to you? You need to demonstrate your soft skills. Yeah. So whole idea is that's a leadership, at least for PMP exam as well. So I need to demonstrate leadership. I need to work with the stakeholders differently. I need to understand their needs and expectation. People won't come for me. Yeah. I want to invite someone for a meeting. Why should that person come? People will come if they have a need and expectation, and I show that I can meet that need and expectation. So I need to be clear about their pains and gains for engaging in this project. And I need to make sure the pains and gains are very visible. Pains of not engaging, gains of engaging. I need to make it very visible. And then I need to show that I have all the interest for increasing the gain and reducing the pain. Now, if I can make that idea clear, or if that idea is not clear to someone, then I need to work with their bosses to make the pain visible to them that you need to do this because it's part of your performance. But there has to be reason. There has to be reason which are well understood and well communicated. And if that is missing, people won't come. Yeah? So you need to make sure you apply sufficient influence to make pains and gains of engagement visible to our stakeholders. And then you build relationship. You are always using different communication style. You work formal with the formal stakeholder. You work with informal stakeholders. You keep things transparent. You focus on negotiation. You focus on networking. Those are generic ideas to apply. And then in the interview space, you can bring a case study that I had at this situation and this is how I did it. But it is very relevant for your PMP exam as well, because you need to engage stakeholder. You need to do a stakeholder engagement assessment. People who are less engaged, you need to come up with strategies which you probably put into your stakeholder engagement plan and ensure that engagement is improved and we achieve our project objectives. So that's anyway needed as a project manager there. So good, we are about to close. It's our time. Next live session coming Friday. Yeah, as most of the time. Again, I don't know, it can happen all the time. There could be some irregularities in between. But as of now, we are following the same pattern. So we'll do it next week. I will pick up a topic. Follow us on LinkedIn or YouTube or both the places. We do publish the session pretty much in advance, and now it's a repetitive pattern as well. So just, or you follow me on LinkedIn, then also you keep getting my updates. You can just search me Saket Bansal on LinkedIn. Should be easy to locate, and that can help us in remain connected during the week. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation. It was nice talking to you. See you next week. Bye for now.